Every afternoon, as they were coming from school, the children would go and play in the giant's garden. It was a large, lovely garden, with soft green grass. Here and there, over the grass stood beautiful flowers like stars, and there were 12 peach trees that in the springtime broke out into delicate blossoms of pink and pearl, and in autumn, bore rich fruit. The birds sat on the trees and sang so sweetly that the children would stop their games in order to listen to them. This was the most beautiful place on earth. How happy they were. One day the giant came back. He had been to visit his friend the Cornish ogre, and had stayed with him for 7 years. After the 7 years were over, he had said all that he had to say, for his conversation was limited, and he was determined to return to his own castle. When he arrived, he saw the children playing in the garden. "What are you doing there?" yelled the giant, and the children ran away. "My own garden is my own garden, and I will allow nobody to play in it but myself." So he built a high wall all around it, and put up a notice board. "Trespassers will be prosecuted." He was a very selfish giant. The poor children had now nowhere to play, and when the spring came, only in the garden of the selfish giant, it was still winter. The only people who were pleased were the snow and the frost. The snow covered up the grass with her great white cloak, and the frost painted all the trees silver. Then, they invited the north wind to stay with them, and he came. He roared all day about the garden, and blew the chimney pots down. "This is a delightful spot. We must invite Hail on a visit." So the Hail came. He was dressed in grey, and his breath was like ice. The north wind and the hail, and the frost, and the snow danced about through the trees. One morning, the giant was lying awake in bed, when he heard some lovely music, the most beautiful music in the world. Then, the hail stopped dancing, and the north wind ceased dancing, and a delicious perfume filled the air. "I believe the spring has come at last," said the giant. He jumped out of bed and looked out. He saw a most wonderful sight. Through a little hole in the wall, the children had crept in, and they were sitting in the branches of the trees. In every tree that he could see, there was a little child. The trees were so glad to have the children back again, that they had covered themselves with blossoms. The birds were flying about and twittering with delight, and the flowers were looking up through the green grass and laughing. It was a wonderful scene. Only in one corner was it still winter. It was the farthest corner of the garden, and in it was standing a little boy. He was so small that he could not reach up to the branches of the tree, and he was wandering all round it, crying bitterly. The poor tree was still quite covered with frost and snow, and the north wind was blowing and roaring above it. "Climb up, little boy," said the tree, and it bent its branches as low as it could, but the boy was too tiny. And the giant's heart melted as he looked out. He went out into the garden, stole up behind the little boy, and took him gently in his hand, and put him up into the tree. And the tree broke at once into blossom, and the birds came and sang on it, and the little boy stretched out his 2 arms, and flung them round the giant's neck, and kissed him. And the other children, when they saw that the giant was not wicked any longer, came running towards him, and with them came the spring. "It is your garden now, little children." The giant took a great axe and knocked down the wall. And when the people were going to market at 12 o'clock, they found him playing with the children, in the most beautiful garden they had ever seen. All day long they played, and in the evening they came to the giant to bid him goodbye. "But where is your little companion, the little boy I put into the tree?" The giant loved him the best because he had kissed him. "We don't know," replied the children. "He has gone away." The giant said, "You must tell him to be sure to come tomorrow." But the children looked surprised. "We don't know where he lives, we never saw him before." And the giant felt very sad. Every afternoon, when school was over, the children came and played with the giant, but the little boy, whom the giant loved, was never seen again. The giant was very kind to all the children, yet he longed for his first little friend, and often spoke of him. "How I would like to see him again." Years went over, and the giant grew very old and feeble. He could not play about anymore, so he sat in a huge armchair, and watched the children at their games, and admired his garden. "I have many beautiful flowers, but the children are the most beautiful of all." One winter morning, he looked out of his window as he was dressing. He did not hate the winter now, for he knew that it was merely the spring asleep, and that the flowers were resting. Suddenly he rubbed his eyes and wondered, and looked and looked. It certainly was a marvellous sight. In the farthest corner of the garden was a tree, quite covered with lovely white blossoms. Its branches were all golden, and silver fruit hung down from them, and underneath it stood the little boy he had loved. upstairs ran the giant in great joy, and out into the garden. He hastened across the path, and came near to the child, and when he came quite close, his face grew red with anger. For on the palms of the child's hands were the prints of 2 nails, and the prints of 2 nails were on his little feet. Who hath dared to wound me? Tell me, that I may take my big sword and slay him. No, for these are the wounds of love. But who are you? Said the giant. And the child smiled on the giant. You let me play once in your garden. Today you shall come with me to my garden, which is paradise. And when the children ran in that afternoon, they found the giant lying dead against the tree, smiling, and covered with white blossoms.